Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited to introduce my EFT colleague, Robin Bilazarian. Robin is a licensed clinical social worker, a diplomat in comprehensive energy psychology, and an EFT International accredited master EFT trainer, and has incorporated EFT and other mind-body tools into her mainstream mental health practice for 28 years. She is the author of Tapping the Mighty Mind, Simple Solutions for Stress, Conflict, and Pain. She has worked with medical staff, medical students, educators, first responders in a level 1 trauma hospital for over 14 years. She has also worked with chronically mentally ill and has a private practice in the US. Why didn't that sound right? She has trained thousands of practitioners throughout the US and Europe and how to bring these methods into their practices. She also lectures at 4 graduate level colleges and recently published research on the brief energy correction, a way to reduce pain, emotional dysregulation, and neurological disorganization. Welcome, Robin, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks. It's great to be here. It's great to be here.
So Robin,
you're talking passion.
I know. So Robin has been doing this for so long. It's my pleasure to get to have her speak to you today. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what led you to EFT. I mean, you've been in the mental health and, world for so long. I'm wondering what kind of prompted you to say, hey, I want to bring this on board? Or, my trainer, Betsy Muller, has been doing this since the 90s, before anyone even knew about it. And I feel like Robin's probably the same. So tell us a little bit about that, Robin.
Okay. So I am now in South Jersey, about 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia, but I really am from New England, both Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And I was living large in Newport, Rhode Island. I had been the psych social worker at Newport Hospital. So when I went into private practice, it was very easy. I knew all the docs. And what happened is my husband had a forced, they call it a downsize. It's like a layoff. He's very specialized. I'm not. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I can work anywhere. So we ended up leaving New England, which I loved, and we ended up down here in South Jersey, which has become home. It took me a while, but it has become home. Okay. So what happened is I lost all my friends. I lost all my colleagues. I lost all my connections. My husband working late because he didn't want that to happen again. Kids are in school, and I am dead lonely, very lonely. This group that was friendly to me, because people were not friendly. They said, look, we don't need another therapist in this area. We have a glut of therapists. But the first group that were friendly was a group in Cherry Hill, Jersey, and they called themselves the Trauma Study Group. And that's what we did. We studied trauma. And they're about 10 years older than I am. And 2 of them went off to train with Roger Callahan, Dr. Roger Callahan, thought field therapy. And thought field therapy was the mothership of which EFT was devised as a wonderful simplification. So they go to California and they come back, and 2 of them, psychologists, they come back and they say to this New Englander, and we're a little bit, you have to show me, we're full of doubt. They're telling me to tap on these acupressure points if my client has a panic attack. Tap on them while they're having trauma, while they're talking about their trauma, and you will emotionally regulate them. And I did say to them, what the heck were you smoking in California? Because I went to legitimate schools. I went to UMass, I went to UPenn, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I went to legitimate schools. I trained at Duke. I mean, what are you showing me? Okay. And then I went home and I did a lot of soul searching. Can I hang out with these crackpots? Okay. And here I am 28 years later, training all over the place. I do one massive training a month for a very large company. I just finished a 3-week series. It was so exciting, to therapists in Italy. It was wonderful. They had simultaneous translators, which I've never done before. I've done this for the Ukraine, but I had to say a sentence and then wait for it to translate. So it was it just flowed. I just did that Wednesday. and that was wonderful. And so I'm training all over the place.
Hmm.
And for those of you who, so I am a legitimate therapist that takes insurance, does EFT under insurance.
Hmm.
I push the envelope because I really believe it. So I send proposals out. I probably send out one proposal a month to see if somebody is interested. So with that, I do speak for this very large company. I go to these conferences where I'm speaking with the geniuses in the field. I consider myself bright. I don't consider myself a genius, but I'm on the same platform as they are. It's called the Innovations Psychology Conference in California. I spoke last year and I'm invited back this year in
Hmm.
October. And then I just send these proposals to graduate schools, and most of them say yes. Some I don't hear from, and that's okay.
Uh-huh.
I get it.
Uh-huh.
And my mission really is to push this into mainstream mental health, not because it doesn't belong everywhere else, it does, but because I have the licensed early, I have the credibility to push it into mental health. And so I do. So I've worked in medical schools, I've worked in trauma hospitals. I'm doing this stuff 3 to 5 times a day, every day.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're talking about my passion. But
Yeah,
I
it's
just love what
mine
I
too.
do.
I mean, I found it about 10 years ago and changed my entire career to do this because that's how much it
Yeah.
helped me, worked for me, how much I believe in it. So
Mhm.
it really is, I mean, it's life changing. So
Is life changing.
so
It's like magic in some ways,
it
and it
is.
baffles me that other people don't want to be doing it. And like you, because I read your bio before,
Hmm.
but I'm very interested in working with phobias and pain and trauma and all kinds of things. And when I do these workshops, I pull people out of the audience and I take down live. I take down a pain phobia live, and I take down a pain and a phobia live in these workshops.
Hmm.
Get them to zero in 15 minutes or so. And that is life changing. And that's in front of an audience, which is kind of a kick.
Yeah, I know that people are getting to see it in real time and actually it happens to them and they can give you feedback immediately in the moment in front of all these people to witness it. It's kind of, I mean, it's really amazing stuff.
It is.
It's not a joke. It's not, you don't have to believe in it for it to work.
No,
It just works.
no.
So,
It's based on acupuncture, if you will.
mhm,
Acupuncture, acupressure, and that's 2 to 5,000 years old, depending on who you read. Okay.
mhm,
And they're on to something. And it's amazing to me because I'm not medical, that I can, with my fingers, I can get the same results as an acupuncturist. Um,
yes. And
mhm.
I have done a lot of acupuncture. During the summer of COVID, that COVID started, I started working with an acupuncturist for my migraines, and um, it, it it just works. It was the only thing that had helped me up to that point. I hadn't, you know, wasn't even able to tap these things away. So,
Yeah,
but this was direct access with the needle. But you know what? Your fingertips are
I
always
know.
attached to you. You don't have to ask anyone. You don't have to sit in
Very
an
cool.
office and sit still with needles in you for an hour. It's literally, you could do it anywhere, anytime. And it's, you don't even have to. I was just with a new client last night, a young girl for trichotillomania, and she is not believing it. And we left the session last night, and I said, you know what? Don't believe it. I don't care. But I'm asking you to try when you're having these urges, just to even hold your finger on a point and breathe and see what happens, because the cortisol level is lowered just by accessing, just by even putting your finger on these points. And Robin and I have probably both tapped so much in our life, and Robin like 10 times as much as I've tapped, but your body just automatically calms. Now, when I
Yeah.
tap daily, I start yawning before I even get to the setup statement because my body's just so used to calming. So
Yeah, indeed, you said two things I'd like to pick up on.
of
Yawning
course.
and sighing are the only side effects of this. We have no other side effects. It's
Mhm.
sleep kind of yawn. And I think that, well, I've been told the reason that we yawn and sigh is because when we are agitated, we're in the fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system. Yawning and sighing is a sign that we're relaxing and going into the parasympathetic nervous system
Mhm,
of rest, digest, and relaxation. So
mhm.
that's the only side effect, yawning and sighing. And you're talking about working with trauma, you're talking about working with chronic pain. And if they yawn or sigh 4 or 5 times in your office, like that's pretty minor.
Yeah, I know. It's very safe and it really does work. And we're going to get to a little energy kind of experience with Robin here shortly. But let's talk a little bit, Robin, about pain and how it can show up in our bodies, because there are two types of pain that a person can really have: physical and emotional. And can you explain a little bit to our listeners about both types of pain?
What's really interesting is they're definitely interrelated and so separate. I want to speak to it that way. Okay. Uh,
Mhm,
a lot of my colleagues, when they're working with pain, will certainly work with anger, and that seems to be the most common emotion that comes up. That anger is very related to pain, and it can be that you're angry at having pain.
mhm,
Um, but there are some points that you can use that are sort of more mechanical ways of dealing with pain. Okay. One of them is on the back of your hand. Now, I know that some of us, they call this the gamut point. And this is exactly as if you can find the bone in your ring finger, sorry, in your little finger, and the bone in your ring finger on the back of your hand, sort of straddle the knuckles, two fingers sort of straddling the knuckle. And interesting, this is the point for physical and emotional pain. And in the psych world, they're related. There is one medicine out there that's FDA approved for both, and that's Cymbalta. Cymbalta is FDA approved for pain and if you have both, it's really useful that the doctor, it's good practice to use one stone to hit two targets.
mhm,
And so pain can show up as an emotional thing, but it can also show up as a result of some physical problem uh,
mhm,
that you have, whether it's emotional or not. Um, what I like to do when I'm working with pain, so certainly we have the 9 acupoints that people are on. And when I work with pain, I do something that follows the protocol of CJ Poitin. You can find her at taptheworldeft.com. And she is my mentor. I've been to so many of her trainings and worked with her privately too. And she likes metaphors. And it's more powerful to go after the metaphor. As a therapist, we're trained to use metaphors. We
mhm.
call them therapeutic metaphors. My favorite therapeutic metaphor is talking about a battery. And I will say to someone who's really pushing themselves too hard, um, use you are burning your battery all day at work, and then you continue to discharge your battery at night. And if you don't do something fun, you're going to end up as a battery. And with that, I can get these really type A driven people to relax a little bit and take care of themselves a little bit more.
Mhm.
But in using the EFT, when I ask people to describe their pain, I don't want them to tell me that it's this or that. I want them to tell me in a metaphor. And so, for instance, he was very cute and very funny. I worked with a cop, and he had come to me because of trauma on his job. And we had done EFT quite a bit on that trauma on his job. And then he came in and he said to me, I don't know what I'm going to do. My surgeon just released me. I have frozen shoulder. And he told me I have to live with the pain of a 7. And I don't know how to do that. I'm a young cop, and I'm the one on the foot chases. And so I said to him, I might be able to help you. And he said, it's not in my head, Robin. He said, it's not in my head. He said, it's really physical pain. And so with that, I asked him for a metaphor. He was very cute. He said, there's not a metaphor in my head. I'm black, white, no metaphor whatsoever. So I asked him, if this was a tool in your tool shop, what would it be? He said, that's easy. He said, it's a vise that's been soldered shut. And that was my metaphor. Okay.
Okay.
So we are tapping, side of hand. I actually asked 3 questions: the emotion of the pain, which is usually anger, and what is the pain saying to you? So we're tapping on the side of the hand and we're saying, even though I have this pain that feels like a vice that's been soldered shut, and my pain is angry and it's telling me tough, live with it. I'm a good person and it's how I feel. And I'll do that for 3 times. And then I'll go through the points. This pain, I'll alternate their words. So on the tapping on the top of my head, this pain feels like a vice that's been soldered shut. Inner eyebrow, tapping on that, my pain feels angry. Outer eye, and my pain is saying, live with it, too bad, tough. Okay. Under the eye, my pain feels like a vice that's been soldered shut. Under the nose, my pain is really angry. It's not their emotion, it's the emotion of the pain. Okay. And what the pain is saying to me, tough, live with it, you're stuck. Collarbone, I feel this pain in my shoulder. Under the arm, I feel this it feels like a vice that's been soldered shut. I'll do 2 rounds of that. And I will have asked for the number of intensity in the beginning. And he was an 8 when we started. And we did this over and over again until he was a 0. Okay. Now, true to most cops, they're not in love with being in therapy. So, and I was supposed to pursue him because it was an EAP client. Okay. Employee assistance client.
Got it.
Called him in 2 months and said, hey, and what he said to me, I think this is funny. What he said to me after we took his pain down, because his eyes are bulging out of his head in disbelief. He can't believe it because the surgeon just told him that he's going to have to live with pain of 8. And so he said to me, Robin, I thought you were crazy, but you might have some value. Because we were doing EFT on his trauma. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, I called him 2 months later and said, hey, you're supposed to come back. They want you to come back for a couple of questions. He said, yeah, I'll be back. I said, by the way, how's your pain? He said, it's gone. Okay. And so what we've done all over the place is give people back their livelihood. We've taken away the things that are going to interrupt them. I also use pain on my own back stuff. I have serious back stuff going on. I'm supposed to be a bent over older woman, and I'm not. I'm upright. And I'm not. No. And when I do this on myself, use real strong language. This pain is saying to you, too bad. Suck it up. You're just going to have to live with it. Don't be sweet with it. And by the way, you don't have to do it out loud if you're doing it by yourself. That's a question I get. So that's kind of where I work with pain. But I also want to tell I'm not always successful. And that brings me to the only thing I researched. I am a clinician. I'm not a researcher. The only thing I ever researched was something called the brief energy correction. And you can look that up. You can look on the brief energy correction. And it does come from thought field therapy, which again was the mothership where EFT was simplified. So what happened to me was this. I am in front of 75 people. I pulled somebody out of 75 clinicians. I pulled somebody out of the audience and I'm working on her pain. And I'm doing all kinds of things because I have a lot of other things that I add to working on pain. And I'm getting nothing. I'm getting squat. I'm getting nothing. And I did this brief energy correction. And so I did it with her. And I'll talk you through it in just a second.
Okay.
And the pain dropped 4. And I did it another time and a pain dropped 2 more. And that was about 8 years ago. And from that, I got very fascinated. What is this thing? And so I use it a lot when I get stuck. Sometimes I use it directly, but I use it a lot when I get stuck. When the EFT tapping is not working, then I do that. So I'd like to take you through it twice if you don't mind. Okay.
Of course.
You why. The second time I want to tell you what's going on. So we're going to take your open hand and put it across your belly button. Then we're going to take 2 fingers, open it up and put it on either side of your collarbone. Okay. Which for those who are just listening, it's high up, sort of straddling the neck. Under the 2 fingers, under the nose, fingers under the lip. And then reach for your lower back. So the research I did, and by the way, I had so much help. I'm so grateful because I am a clinician, but I had so much help designing this. We did it for 30 seconds. We did it for 30 seconds 3 times. The biggest drop really was in 30 seconds. So I'd like to do it one more time because I want to tell you what I'm doing. The hand across your belly button is covering about 5 meridians. Okay, in acupuncture, they often use more than 1 meridian at a time. The hand across your collarbone, opening your hand up, this is the kidney meridian. The Asian medicine names these meridians by the major organ that feeds it. And so this is the kidney meridian. And as you know, everything goes through the kidneys. When you put 2 fingers under your nose, this is the most major meridian. This is the governing vessel. And this starts under the nose, goes up through your head, down through your spine, and into your tailbone. When you put 2 fingers under your lip, okay, sort of in that little groove that's there, this is the second most major meridian. It actually has 2 names. It's called the central vessel and it's called the conception vessel. And it goes straight down the front of your torso, okay? And then we're putting our hand again to the back of our spine, hitting that governing vessel again. And we do that for 30 seconds. So the research, we did it 30 seconds 3 times because we weren't sure. The biggest drop really is the first 30 seconds. We had 39 people drop 4 points of pain and 36 people who did not have pain because we were just doing it in a conference, drop 5 points of whatever their upset was. That's after 90 seconds though, of doing that repeatedly, because that's how the data came out. So with that, I also do this for pain. It's one of my techniques, my go-to for pain, to use it for here. And interesting, you mentioned trichotillomania. I know what it is. I've treated it. And I find that the brief energy correction is way better for compulsive behaviors.
Really?
Thoughts. Yeah. When I have an OCD client, I'm pretty much the brief energy correction for most of my interventions. I start with EFT and I get a point or 2. And then when I switch over to the brief energy correction, I get more.
Okay. Well,
So,
this is really helpful because
yeah.
I just, like this client that I was telling you about last night, this is our first session together and she's a teenager and she's got hair pulling disorder and her number didn't come down. We only did 2 rounds at the end of, kind of getting through all of the reasons. And she has this belief that,
that you're crazy.
well, besides the belief that I'm crazy and that this looks so stupid and why would you ever do it? Which I did show her how to tap on her fingers so she could tap under her desk at school, but her number didn't come down. And so I said to her, well, we're going to check back in with your number next week about, that her hair looked horrible because she's got a big spot on the top. So that's a big thing to get your number to come down. Yeah, my hair still looks horrible. We only tapped for 2 rounds. So I'm thrilled that we're having this conversation today so I can try that on her because it's always sitting on my desk here. I love it for me even, but I had no idea that it would work for OCD. And why do you think though, Robin, what is the reason?
So look, I do it. My specialty is probably anything on the anxiety disorder, including trauma. But I find that OCD, I think it's neurological in some way.
Okay.
It reminds me of sort of the wampums at the, I think I'm saying that right, at the arcade where you bang one down and another one pops up and you bang that down and another one pops up.
Yes.
And so I think that the brief energy correction is hitting multiple points at the same time, including that one hand that's laying across your stomach is hitting 5 meridians, hitting these major meridians. That's only a guess, though. That's an educated guess.
It's a guess.
Yeah. And by the way, I have very good results with compulsive behaviors and compulsive habits by using the very word that you did, Liz. Okay. I say tune into your urge.
Yes.
To your hands. Tune into your urge to shower 10 times a day. those things come down pretty fast.
Okay.
Okay. And I change my language to tune into the urge. And I will do that throughout. So I will be having them tap on the side of the hand, and I will say, I have the urge to um, take 10 showers a day. Top of head, the urge to take 10 showers a day. I use that word a lot when I'm working with compulsive behaviors,
Okay.
unwanted habits, nail
Yep.
biting, thumb sucking.
Hmm.
I use the same word. Interesting with if it's true OCD, my OCD clients will let me take them down to doing whatever their behavior is about twice a day. So 2 showers a day instead, and washing their hands twice a day instead of 20 times a day.
Uh-huh.
I think that they know, and I know too, that if I take it away totally, that their anxiety will be bigger than the Empire State Building.
Right.
If
And
I
that's,
attempt to
yeah,
control their anxiety, uh,
right.
interesting with habits, they let me take it down totally. They're good with letting it go. If it's an unwanted habit,
Hmm.
no thumb sucking. I haven't had a chance to do thumb sucking with a child, but I've done it with some adults who are really pretty upset that they do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you explained about the physical, the cop that you worked with that had the physical pain of the frozen shoulder, I have a story about a client with a frozen shoulder as well, but hers was emotional.
Yeah.
So the reason that that is a little bit different is because she came to me after she had she was doing physical therapy weekly for months and nothing was working. She couldn't lift her arm above her shoulder. I mean, frozen shoulder, literally what it says it is. And it wasn't that she had any pain. It was just that she couldn't lift her arm. And so she was working with this physical therapist that was also a naturopath. He had some experience with energy medicine, and he finally said to her, you know what? I think this is emotional. It's not, I'm not going to be able to help you. So quit coming here.
Mhm.
Do you need to try something else? And she thought, well, what am I going to do? And her daughter was seeing me for something unrelated. And he said, find someone that does EFT. So
Mhm.
it just happened that I was working with her daughter, and she asked, could she come into my physical office, which I mostly see clients in over Zoom, even if they're in Cleveland, but she wanted to come in. So she came in, and this is right when I started my practice. This was very early on. And what's your pain level? I don't have any pain. I just can't lift my arm. Okay, so what else is going on? Tell me a little bit about what else is going on. So she tells me, excuse me, that her oldest son is about to leave for college. And we are going around about that. And she says, I said, tell me how you feel about that. Well, he was very dependent on her because he had all kinds of um, allergies. And she was very concerned about him all the time. What if he eats this? What if he eats that? So she was really managed him, as a mother would, to make sure he was safe. And now he's going to be leaving and going across, the country to school. How is
Right.
she going to manage him? Okay. So
And
that's,
also she was losing
yes.
her purpose in life. We all need to have purpose. It
Mhm.
comes with in grief a lot too, that their purpose was to take care of their elderly mother, husband, sick child,
Yeah.
and they're lost.
And that all of a sudden, yes, there's this. And that's kind of how we got this happened, where we were talking about when did this, when did you notice that this started? And it was, right around the time they started looking at colleges. And so, as a good detective, as an EFT practitioner should be, I
Yes.
figured let's talk about that a little bit more. And I said, where are you feeling this the most? That your son's leaving, that you won't have this job as being his protector anymore. And she said, in my heart, I really, really feel it in my heart. I have this broken heart. So we talked about her broken heart, which this is all connected, especially all the muscles. I mean, everything, all
Mhm.
connected. So we tapped 2 rounds on her broken heart, and she cried. I mean, there was tears there. And then we checked in again, and she could almost get it up to by her ear. And then we did 2 more rounds, and a little bit more crying ensued. And she said something felt like it lifted. And then I had her raise her arm again, and she was able to get it up over her head. in 2 rounds. And I
I
was
know.
even shocked. It was like,
It's
what?
really shocking.
And so I
Really
never saw her
shocking.
again after that. That was
No,
that
I
was
know.
it.
Yeah.
And
I,
that's when you know you did your job so well. I mean, we don't want to keep you for your whole life by any means. Robin and I are like, we want to help you get
yeah.
rid of whatever that is that you're dealing with and send you on your way with this tool that if it comes up
Mhm.
again, you can either call us or use this tool on your own.
So I'm able to call myself a brief therapy expert, and I'm not the expert. EFT is the expert, but they don't know that. They don't know exactly why this is going to be fast, and it's
Mhm.
fast. Sometimes it's too fast.
I
Sometimes
know.
their eyes are like looking around, like, "What did you do
What
with?
did you
What did you do with this? And how did you do that?" And yeah, it's very cool.
And then there are ways, though, that we can test as practitioners to know, have you feel back into that feeling. So in the moment there with my client, I said, feel back into your heart space. How is your sadness, your broken heart? Do you feel that when you picture him leaving? And no, I feel happiness for him. I'm just so happy that he gets to
Mhm.
go. And then we know, hey, this is worked. We've done our duty and we can send you on your way. So
So what you just said, Liz, I call that a spontaneous insight or a cognitive shift. It comes from them. It didn't come from me. I didn't say to them, "Be happy that your son is bright enough to be able to go away to this wonderful university," because they won't believe it. So I also say that what happens is um, when our emotions are high at a 7, 8, 9, 10, our brain, reasoning power, personality, problem solving skills are low. And what EFT does is it inverts them. It pushes the emotional overwhelm down so that you think better. And I consider myself neurologically informed. I'm not a neurologist. So let me say that one other way. When the amygdala, which is on above both sides of your ears, both sides above your ears, it's small, it's about almond shape. It is a center for emotion and physical pain. Okay. And when it's in charge, it hijacks your forehead, if you will, the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is where you think, where you problem solve. It's even the point of compassion. So that if somebody did you wrong, and you're just furious because of your amygdala is in charge. When that comes down, there's a compassion piece of you that'll say they probably didn't mean it, okay? But you can't get there when you're angry. So it is what EFT does. Simply, EFT tapping sends a calming signal to your brain to quiet down the amygdala so that you can think better. And that's probably my elevator speech too, as I walk around hospitals and universities and wherever, the med school, wherever, saying, "What is this you do?" And I
yes,
typically say, "I want to show you a way to calm down your brain so that you can think better." And with that, yeah. It's also funny at the hospital. This is a very show and tell kind of technique. You're doing something. So they would put me in the cafeteria with for their health fairs. And next to me, someone's taking blood pressure, and I've got a sign. "Do you want to try acupressure for a release?" And I will say to anywhere from 3 to 15 medical staff, "What is your stress level?" Because I don't want to know your issue. Okay, not here,
yeah,
noisy, and it's none of my business. And
uh-huh,
we'll say 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. And then in mass, we do it together. And then I ask them again, "What is your stress level now? And how many points did you drop?" And they're all looking at each other like, "What did she do?" Uh, and I ask them to hold up fingers, and people are holding up 3 fingers and 5 fingers and 6 fingers and whatever. And that's in mass. And I still don't know what their issue was.
right.
Another reason why I guess I'm talkative today. Um, Another reason why I like EFT tapping a lot, because I've done a lot with the military also. And the military can't tell you their issues because it's confidential,
Hmm.
and they can't tell you. So I have tapped on a veteran, um, and I don't know what I tapped on because agreed was he was not sleeping. He was having nightmares. And our words were, "That awful thing that happened over there." I don't know what the awful thing was, and I don't know where it was. But
Hmm.
he did not have to give up any confidential information.
Mhm.
He said he can't. I can't,
Yeah.
not allowed to talk about it. And I said, then we won't. And so that's what we're tapping on. Even though that awful thing happened over there, I'm a good person and it's how I feel. That awful thing that happened over there. And with that, his nightmare stopped.
Wow. Because I mean, I think that that's amazing because, we're always supposed to be so specific with the wording, and it helps to have that shift happen quicker than like a global kind of tapping that you
Yeah.
would do. But it doesn't matter, apparently.
Yeah. To
I mean,
him, Liz,
I'm assuming that he's thinking of what it is.
I
And
I agree
yes.
with that. He
Hmm.
specifically, he's thinking about it.
Right.
But
You're just guiding him.
he's not breaking any classified information
Hmm.
in telling me that, because that could be anything. I mean, that could be somebody's broke a toe kicking a football.
Right.
No, versus it could be some awful, terrible thing that happened in Afghanistan. And so he knows. And when I do this with groups, my clients know what,
Hmm.
and I try to get a general term. So I might get furious at my family member for this. And I don't know what they're talking
You
about.
have no idea.
I,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I have no idea. And
I think that's even
well,
harder, to be honest. That's
no,
I
it works. It does work.
I
Yeah.
know, but I
It's some
think that
confidence. It
yeah,
works.
you have to I feel like you have to be very, I mean, I know you are very good at your job, to be able to do that work and have them kind of get into the mindset of thinking about that horrific thing or that trauma or whatever, but you're guiding them in a way that they're not divulging any information that they're not allowed to. And I think that that's even sometimes more tricky than coming up with a very specific setup statement.
Mhm.
So, but I love how we talked about the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, because Betsy Muller, who is my trainer, she was on episode 1 of season 2. Her and I talked about this, how it's, why would you make a decision when your amygdala has taken over, when your cortisol level is so high that your prefrontal cortex cannot, that's why you shouldn't make a decision when you're enraged, when you're upset. You can tap yourself down so that things level out, like Robin's saying, everything's back even, so that
Right,
you can think straight. So
right,
it really, this is what this does. The
right.
tapping does this, and our cortisol levels come down. We are able to, I mean, it's like when kids get into, I think they say red brain, like you'll be saying something to a kid who's having a tantrum and they don't even hear you because
No.
everything has been hijacked.
Mhm.
So that's,
Yeah.
and I can even do that with my son now, my 9-year-old. If he's having a tantrum over who knows what, he has to go to bed early and he doesn't want to. I can, while he's having the tantrum, I can tap on his head without him even knowing, and he calms down.
Mhm.
So it
It's
it
cool.
really does work. And it's not, it is kind of magic, but there is a scientific
Oh,
reason
no, there's
why it
lots of
works.
science for it.
And there's a lot of
Yeah,
science behind it. Yes.
a lot of science. For those people who care about science, we have 275 research projects in English from England, Australia, and America. We have another 70 in other languages whose intent have been translated. They've been translated, not word for word, but what the final results were. So
Mhm.
we have a lot of research. We're not doing this alone in our offices, and I'm not in my offices. I between being at the medical school and at the hospital, and before that I was at a community mental health center working with chronic mentally ill. It works there too. And they let me train the 13 staff and 2 psychiatrists, and I pushed them a little bit. They sent me to a training at Oxford in England. It
Oh
was
my
wonderful.
gosh.
I know, it was really, they paid for it too.
Amazing.
It's unheard of that to pay for something out of the country, you know. And we were stabilizing people all over the place. And I'll just tell you a quick case from there because it was very interesting.
Yes, please do.
Um, this was a woman with paranoid schizophrenia. She was my client for a year and a half. I did what we're supposed to do, which is reality testing, telling her that the voices she hears in her head are part of her illness. She was cute. She had a cute sense of humor. She thought people were coming to kill her. And I would say to her, it's been too many years. They're not that patient. And she would laugh, and she was still homebound and getting fatter than a barn because the medicine they were using with her was called Clozaril, and it makes you very, very fat. You know, and so the staff pushed me. And at that time, nobody had done anything on record with psychosis. And I was afraid. So I thought, okay, we're going to try this. So we went after her fear of the voices. I did
Okay.
not cure schizophrenia,
Mm-hmm.
but I went after her fear, and she was terrified of these voices.
Mm-hmm.
No, I believe these voices are real, and I'm terrified. I am okay. These voices are real, and I'm terrified. They're coming to get me. So I see her the next session. Please keep in mind, this was my client for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I see her the next session, and she says to me, I'm losing weight. I said, how? I'm always interested in that in my own journey, you know? I said, how? She says, well, I'm walking about 45 minutes a day in my neighborhood. I said, wait, you were homebound. You were basically living at home. The agency van picked you up, brought you to my appointment, brought you home.
Mm-hmm.
Said, yeah, she said, I'm not afraid anymore. And I said, you're not afraid. And I said, oh, what happened? She said, well, I have a good therapist. I said, great. Who are you working with? She said, you, Robin. I had no clue. One session, a year and a half of reality testing, which is what you're supposed to do with people,
Mm-hmm.
to say to them, look, let's own, I mean, you do this gently and delicately. Let's own that you have schizophrenia. And let's get that these are voices in your head. Let's try to get you to habituate to them so that you don't notice them anymore, and that they just sort of become background, and you live your life and you know that they're kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
For a year and a half, I said that to her in one session of EFT, which I was afraid to do.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. And I have more stories like that with chronic mentally ill because the team pushed me.
Uh-huh.
Team pushed me to try it
Yeah.
because yeah.
And so this woman, have you been in contact with her? Do you know what her situation is
I don't.
today?
No,
That
I
would be
don't.
interesting to know.
I definitely followed her for another year after that, and
Okay.
she was out and about and
Oh
doing
my
things
goodness.
on her own, going
Amazing.
shopping, out and about and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't worked there in a long time.
But that is
Yeah,
really a great story. I love it. I mean, there are so many of these from so many of our clients. I mean, it's thrilling to get to see
yeah,
someone
it
be
is thrilling.
free. I mean, I literally have the word freedom tattooed on my wrist, which
Yeah,
my husband's still angry that I did this because I'm not a tattoo person. But
right,
after overcoming something
right,
so easily, not
right.
easy, there are some things that I did go through a lot of
Yeah,
past
sure.
events and stuff like that when I was healing. But it happened during my EFT training where I
Mhm.
was able to clear this. I worked with Joan Kaler, and we were able to
I know
clear
Joan.
this.
Joan and I
Do you
have
know
done some
Joan?
workshops together.
Okay, so Joan and I worked together while I was getting certified, and she was able to get to the bottom of it right
Yeah,
after 2 sessions. It's like,
yeah.
okay, I don't believe this. But this is
So
how, I mean, the freedom, I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
felt so free from
it's
this
really
that I
good.
got a tattoo.
So I'm going to plug my book just a little bit.
Yes,
My
be
book
go
is
right
called
ahead.
Tapping the Mighty Mind, and Solutions for Stress, Conflict, and Pain. And my book was meant to be an integrative book, which means it's got straight counseling things and EFT in there. So if you get the book just for EFT, just start at chapter 3. Okay.
Excellent. Good to know.
Just start at chapter 3, and it's available on Amazon. But I want to tell you, my biggest challenge was public speaking. I run anxious. I own that. I run anxious, but public speaking was off the table. I couldn't do it, and I wanted to do it. My colleagues were teaching college classes. They knew I wanted to do this. They would to come in to do a 15-minute segment. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even remember my name. I would be so much in my amygdala. I'd have all that foggy brain. I'd be blushing. I'd be redder than my hair. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I know exactly which workshop I lost my fear of public speaking. It was in an EFT tapping thought field therapy actually workshop, and I lost it there. And then there were other pieces of it because you know that there are pieces that hang around. And so one of the pieces was um, that I was good with it, and I was speaking all over the country and all over and then I got asked to speak to grand round psychiatry. Okay.
Oh, mm-hmm,
I believe psychiatrists are smarter than me, whether they are or not. And I
uh-huh,
was frozen again, so I had to do that one. Even though
mm-hmm,
I believe that these guys are smarter than I am,
mm-hmm,
I choose to believe I'll get through this. These terrified these people are smarter than me. Terrified these people are smarter than me. Terrified these people, and did that throughout the whole thing.
mm-hmm,
Um, and absolutely did fine with it because when pain calmed down, I was able to say they probably are smarter than I am, but not in EFT and tapping.
mm-hmm,
Going in
mm-hmm.
there to talk to them about medication,
Yep.
because that would be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so what happens is I've given, I've granted continuing ed units, which professionals need. Okay, they have to have them to social workers, psychologists, medical doctors, psychiatrists, marriage and family therapists, the drug and alcohol people, and a whole, yeah. And so, so yeah, it's going.
It's awesome. Well, I'm just thrilled. Before we wrap up today, besides your book, can you let our listeners know any offerings that you have available or where they might find you if they'd like to work
Yeah.
with you?
Okay, so you all have seen that my last name is Bilazarian. I married that, so I don't use it for. I mean, it is my last name. So my website is Robin EFT1 at .net. Robin, sorry, let me say that again. That's I gave you my email. My website is robineft.net. And I do monthly mentoring of other colleagues. I run a lot of workshops. I have an upcoming workshop for PESI that I'm pretty excited about. It's going to be on phobias, social anxiety, and performance anxiety. I run this workshop for Rutgers called 15 Mind-Body Techniques to Calm the Neurological Landscape. And I really do know that many because when you do something for 28 years, people come up to you and say, hey, do you know this one? Do you know havening? Yes, I do now. Do you know flash? Yes, I do now. Do you know the brief energy correction? Yes, I told you about that. So, so you can look for me on my website. They're listed, EFT.net, and I'd be happy to work with any of you. I love working with my colleagues. Just love pushing this into mainstream mental health and into every home, every school, every office, because it just quiets down all dysregulation and also physical pain. So yeah, so that's
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of that. And all of the information that Robin just gave you will be available in the show notes at the end of the show. And just a reminder, if you'd like to work with me, you can schedule a free EFT discovery call on my website, tapintohealth.net. Or if you're ready to start right now, you can visit my online store and download pre-recorded mini sessions. Thank you so much for being here today, Robin.
Thank
And
you. It was a joy.
thank you for listening today. We'll see you next time. And until then, keep tapping.